my promise for this webinar is that by the end, you actually will not only know more than most of the doctors right now about EBV and why you're not getting better and why it's not your fault, but I will share the way out with you. How many of you actually would like to get rid of EBV? Information is great, but what about actually healing from EBV? Because that's the promise I bring. I'm going to present you the truth, factual truth. Anything that I say in this webinar, you can verify in medical literature and also through my experience in my clinic. So I want to make sure that you know that. The purpose of this webinar, yes, is to share about autoimmunity, is to share the why and what's happened to you and moving forward. But the moving forward is, yes, you can heal from EBV. And for me, the vision for you is to have your life back, to be able to bike, to be able to jog with your dog, to be able to go for that dream job, to be able to hold that job, to be able to get a good night's sleep and actually really get up in the morning, like really deeply rested. Okay, that's what I want for you. To be able to drive without an anxiety attack. To be able to experience a day without this nagging pain, the mystery pain of 30 years. Okay, that's what I want for you. To not have painful lymph and neck, to be able to move it. To get rid of the buzzing, neuropathy, tingling, the ringing in your ears constantly, or being dizzy, the brain fog when you can't think, finish the sentence, or the constant napping, or, going to a store and not crashing afterwards, not collapsing. This is what I want for you, because this is what I see happening. And I'm very straightforward. You get what you see. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't beat around the bushes because there's no time. Now, I have to warn you, throughout this webinar, in your mind, you'll be fighting this webinar because of what happened to you because of this virus. Oftentimes the virus takes away your life and you become so entrenched in it, like you lose your identity. And you see also through that virus. Think about it, right? You feel trapped by it, but you are so much more than this virus. So people tell me all the time that they want to get rid of it. They want to change. And yes, in our clinic we have the solution, but I'm asking you in advance, are you willing for your life to become different? Because in order to have that different life, in order to heal from EBV, to live without the fear, know what to do, you have to do things different from what you're currently doing. So I'm just going to plant the seed for you because good things are coming. But where you are right now is not going to take you all the way. We have to make changes. So we're going to talk about why you're not getting better. We're going to talk about autoimmunity. Remember always, always that your body is infinitely intelligent, never acts against you. And the only purpose it has is to keep you alive, okay? It's been working so hard for you, trying to get this virus to stall. I need you to love your body. I need you to understand that it's your best friend. I want you to stop being afraid and feel that you're betrayed and you can't trust your body, please. Anybody has those fears? I need you to say cancel, cancel anytime you come up with that thought. Or put a rubber band around your wrist and snap it every time that thought comes, because it doesn't serve you. And yes, it is personal. It's always personal. I'm not a wounded healer. I've never tested EBV. I don't need to. I know what to do. Anyway, but I lost one of my best friends. I remember December 24th, 2014. I called Marlena as usual. The Vigilia is the most important day of the year for Polish people, and Marlena was in Poland. I was already living in the States, and I was calling her as usual to wish her Merry Christmas. And that time, I could not understand what she was saying. She was losing her ability to talk. Her son had to take over, and it was the last conversation I had with her. It was heartbreaking because I felt hopeless, angry, aggravated, scared, because she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis just out of the blue, like you or me or anyone else, 6 months before I moved to the States. And all my years of immigration correlated with her fighting this virus, and she died of complication. We lost her. And she left a hole in my heart. However, she also fired me up. And I think the reason why I'm standing in front of you right now is because she must have pulled a lot of strings in heaven to create a coincidence after coincidence for me to be able to provide the service and come up with these solutions. I can't explain it any other way. My aha moment was when a couple of my clients actually around the same time asked me to give them an educated opinion on this medical medium book. So many people get stuck with EBV and they don't get better. You know, you try supplements, you try diet, you try different therapies, you try different doctors. And these were some of the clients that were complicated and they were not getting better. And my aha moment was when I was reading the book and said, these are my clients. So I never looked back. You know, I just started to look at research. I started to analyze the lab interpretation. I started to ask my clients to test, and the rest is history. Now, let me ask you a question. Actually, I want to connect with you as a community so you can see the trajectory of your life may be similar to others. How many years have you been fighting this beast? 1 year, 6 months? What do you think it is in your life? Put it in the chat for us so we can share. How many years do you think? 8 plus 10, 14, 1 year, Matt. That's not too bad. If I may say 2 years, 5, since 1963, 14, 25. Since 63, 20 years, 10 years. Can you see? So typically the trajectory is sometimes all your adult life, sometimes from childhood or teenage, exactly. Okay, now I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions. How many of you have a formal diagnosis when you a doctor actually found out, tested you properly, and you know you have it? Say me if you don't. No. Me. Yes. Yes, no. Diagnosed, tested. Okay. Yes, so there's more yeses than no's 6 months ago. Okay. Well, sometimes it takes years to get proper diagnosis. Okay, and now, uncomfortable question. How much money have you spent? Because typically what I see is anywhere from 5,000 to 500,000. Sometimes people even travel abroad. 8,000, exactly. Lost track. 40,000, 5,000, 3,000. 4,000 in 4 months, probably 10. Exactly. And now the last question is, what is the percentage of your improvement from 0 to 100? Obviously not 100 because you wouldn't be here. How much have you recovered over all these years, all this money? 10%, 20%, 50%? I'll tell you what I typically see. 30, 75, Christy, 75 is really pretty good. 50, 25, 0. 15, 30, 25. Typically I see about 25, 30. 50% not too bad, but it's not 100. 0, Pat, yes. Lots of improvements, Radio, thank you. I'm better than was 3 years ago, good, 10%. Well, exactly, that's the trajectory. And I wanted to ask these questions, I always do, because we have this common thread of so much pain, so much money, so many doctors, and each time you have trust, you think this will be the one. That's why I planted the seed. You're gonna be struggling with this webinar because it's hard to have hope again, right? All right, so after a couple of years of, thank you for that, by the way. After a couple of years of working intensely on this, I created a methodology, turnkey solutions. I'm all about solutions. And we reverse engineered the virus. And literally, I'm going to show you that this is a big element in the room. Nobody's looking at it. It's changing, hopefully. And I'm going to tell you why it's not changing fast enough. This is one of my magic moments in the picture, and my husband took a picture of me right after a webinar that I delivered to practitioners about EBV. You can see mapping of it. For those of you that don't know me, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Kasia Kainz. I'm a doctor of clinical functional nutrition. There's only maybe 30 people with my degree on this planet. It's a very unique training. I was also trained at Bastyr University before. I have become an international leader in evidence-based recovery methodology for this virus. That's very important. It's evidence-based. I founded Global EBV Institute. I founded EBV Educational Institute in Marlena's memory. I help people with EBV just like you actually heal from this virus and get their lives back. And I also train clinicians in that methodology, just like I told you. I'm a passionate advocate for you, for debunking the common misinformation about this virus. And I lecture to the medical community whenever I get a chance about it. I'm on a mission to provide the solution to anyone that is ready globally with education, with program, with a book, so people don't suffer needlessly, don't die of complications, possibly like Marlena. And again, just to verify, I have been in this field since 2005. I'm very committed. I've worked with some of the best people, trained under some of the best people in the country. I'm really serious and dedicated to this field. Once we figured out this EBV situation, the first thing we created was the EBV help website. All the resources, all is evidence-based, are available right there. So I don't want people to spend time searching around for half a year piecing together some kind of coherent information about the virus. It's all here. This is evidence-based as well. And of course, we have the book. Let me ask, these days, most people that come to our education have read the book. Here's the book. It's pretty big. How many of you are actually familiar with it? Let me know if I should explain more. Yes. I'm really grateful. Oh, not familiar. Okay. It is on Amazon. And about 1/3 of it is research. So this is for medical doctors, so they can handle it. They have everything in one house. And then 2/3 is actually the recovery. Okay, Kimberly. So it's easy to get. It's on Amazon. Perfect. Not familiar. I'm glad that some of you don't know, so that will be a good resource. So my goal for this webinar is to show you the shortest way to recovery from chronic or acute EBV. Recovery is more a medical term, but I like the term healing because we have, recovery is just physical, but we really need to heal physical, emotional, what the virus has taken away from you. Wouldn't you agree? So the next 40 minutes will be really focused on the presentation. After that, I'm going to show you the way out, and after that, we're going to have Q&A. We're going to talk about the hype, the why you're not getting better, the concept that the doctor has in his or her mind is what's stumbling here. We're going to talk about testing as well, how to do it appropriate. And we're going to talk about why you're getting stuck, why you're not getting the right help. And we're going to talk about strategies. I'm going to give you an example of how it's very easy to say supplements don't work, this doesn't work, I tried everything. Well, you haven't. You have to be strategic. With this virus, if we're smarter than the virus, we have a strategy and we can hit it. And I'm going to show you how in our institute we hit it from all sides. I'm going to start with some of the frustrating parts that I can't stand. Myth number one, I'm going to read it. If your loved ones or your doctor has said that to you, said yes in the chat. You will be surprised how many people have heard this. It's in your head, you're just depressed. Or sometimes I also heard, get some exercise, you're gonna feel better. Ooh, wrong. Your labs are fine. You only had it in the past, just like most of us. Stop reading about it on the internet, it's just a hype, especially because medical medium. If you don't have mono, you don't have EBV. Anybody? Yes, I'm seeing yes. Yes. They don't believe it's real? Yes. Yes. My doctor told me I was just depressed? Yes. Therapist recommended electroshock. Oh my goodness. So yes, agree. As you can see, I'm gonna tell you, the way I look at it is, I want you to not be frustrated with that community. If there's ego in the doctor, obviously fire the doctor and hire another. But if the doctor cannot help you, I want to explain to you why it is so. So you don't have a lot of frustrations towards them. One of the reasons is that medical information, when there's new research, takes about 15 years to become practice in medical clinic. In other words, let's say this book has all the information and research put together. It doesn't mean that your doctor will see it and utilize it in medical practice tomorrow. And we don't have that time. That's why I wrote it. So that's called denial. So what your doctor is saying is based on their experience, their antiquated training, and it is denial. So this is not really factual, but that's what the doctors believe. I'm going to give you an example of a painful story that I hate to see, and I see them much too often. Maybe that's your story. So imagine Heather, who had a couple of autoimmune disorders already diagnosed. She was unable to work. And 7 years before talking to me, she had a hunch, because she was a good researcher. She was on Google and PubMed and researching in Doc. I think I might have chronic EBV. Could you test it for me? And she told me specifically she talked to that doctor because she trusted him. This was a doctor, she had a good relationship, she trusted him. And what do you think was the answer? Anybody can guess what the doctor said? Yeah, sure, let's test. What happened to her? No, Lauren, exactly. He told her, it has nothing to do with EBV. You had it, that's it. And so what did the woman do? She stopped looking there. She continued for 7 years, spending all that money, like you said, thousands of dollars. She continued to deteriorate, her quality of life went down, and she wasn't getting over anything. So when we talked, we kind of reviewed her history and her timeline. It's like, oh my gosh, it's in my face. And I'm going to show you all kinds of conditions so you start having some aha moments as well, connections. And so, yes, obviously, I taught her how to test, and then I taught her the interpretation, and guess what? Of course, she had it. Remember, if you have any questions, leave them for the end and type them at the end. So I won't be able to, I can see that there's some questions. Now let's look at the medical literature. What do researchers actually say? If you have idiopathic cases, which means doctors have no idea what the cause is, consider chronic active EBV or severe chronic active EBV. And that's 10 years ago, okay? That's the literature. What is the literature? Chronic illness, which cannot be explained by other disease processes at diagnosis. That's where you expect chronic EBV. That's where you expect it. So how is it a hype? I know one of the explanations for hype concept is probably medical medium. Is anybody familiar with medical medium books? Yes. Oh, of course you would, wouldn't you? I'm grateful because he opened the door to this conversation. He really did. Without him, I wouldn't have stumbled upon it. Exactly. No, decided not to read him, Maggie. I totally understand. So let me just reply to Maggie. Medical medium, open the door. He's right here, right? Medical community is right here. Do you think they talk to each other? Do you think it's like they embrace each other? It's like, oh yeah, right, let's test. Oh, absolutely. Do you think there's collaboration and mutual respect and understanding? No. There is a vast ocean for most of us. And this is why I had to write the book, because I want people to have foundations and know what to do. Undeniably research-based. So whatever I could verify that medical medium was claiming, I was looking for research. Does it make sense? So how is it a hype if 95+ of global population have the virus? We have 3 million reported cases of mono. Mono is the acute version of it per year. In the States alone, you have to add more for unreported. We have autoimmunity on the rise. That's one of the worst things that is happening right now in any country. And we're not going to spend too much time on cancer. We're focused on autoimmunity, but let me tell you, it's oncogenic, so it can cause cancer. There are 200,000 cases of EBV-caused cancer per year globally, and 40,000 of these people die. This is all statistics from many years ago. I don't have the new one. And how is it a hype if the global research community is looking for a vaccination? Kind of like vaccination for COVID, right? And by the way, there was a Wuhan study in April 2020 that said there was a correlation between EBV incidence and COVID incidence, just saying. So it is a ticking bomb. It is actually global. What do you know? Now let's talk about the autoimmunity I told you. Now there's a laundry list of possibilities. Okay, there's many conditions that are associated. We're not sure if they're caused by the virus, but they're strongly associated. Laundry list. And you can Google a lot of conditions and you may find studies. But Dr. Hardy is one of the persons that I want to meet in person. He's on my bucket list. He had a fascinating study just about 2 years ago when he tracked specific 7 very common autoimmune disorders, very common. You'll be blown away. He tracked it directly to a protein in the virus causing it. So if you have particular genes for any of those 7 autoimmune disorders, you may suddenly express that autoimmune disorder because of EBV. Do you want to know which autoimmune disorders they are? Let me just check if you're still awake. Yeah, Lauren, of course. Let's do it. Rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, which is Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, juvenile idiopathic arthritis, celiac. Who's talking about celiac being caused by EBV? Multiple sclerosis, lupus, type 1 diabetes. Does anyone here have any of those conditions, or maybe more than one? You have lupus? Bayan has lupus. I have some no's, which is a blessing. MS, Pam, that's tricky. Hashimoto's, yes, Hashimoto's actually is also on the list, not in that study. MS, Judy, MS is tricky. I'll never know what killed Marlena, but I actually talked to a medical intuitive colleague, and that's what she told me. We'll never know. Lupus. You have 4-6 patients with lupus, Barbara. Yes, that's classic. That is a classic presentation, very pregnant. And there's your celiac, Bethany. You know, there's many reasons for celiac, there's many reasons for MS, but EBV is clearly one of them. Fibromyalgia can be as well, and Hashimoto actually. We're going to talk about that soon. Yes. These are some charts straight from my book. As you can see here, you can have misdiagnosis, including Lyme disease. You have a longer list of autoimmune disorders here alphabetically. There's more because, you know, I can keep updating it. There's a lot of brain inflammatory conditions, even encephalitis. We've had a case. Cancer, as I said, there's specific types of cancer. Like 10% of stomach cancer is caused by EBV. Who knew? Gastrointestinal things. But take a look at these. This is the percentage of people that present certain symptom on the left. Who knew? 75% headaches. Just headaches. You can have those headaches that don't go away. Sore throat, 95%. Of course, it's the lymph because that's the entry of the virus, the tonsils. And we're going to talk about what you can do. I have my aloe here. I'll be drinking. It's fabulous for your throat and for that lymph node on both sides. So also antimicrobial, so it can stall that virus. All kinds of presentations, as you can see. I pulled these on the left from medical research and from my experience. And I believe on our website in the quiz, I include these because people don't realize people have weird presentations. Severe sensitivity to mosquito bites, ear buzzing, ringing, tinnitus, I mentioned that at the beginning, hearing loss, lack of balance. There's more kind of ulceration types, tons of them. So, you know, what do we do with all this elephant in the room, all these kinds of presentations? And how do we, you know, put everyone in one basket? Testing, right? Testing. You gotta test, which brings me to the topic. So a lot of you said that you have not been tested. Yeah, you have been tested actually in this group in particular. All right. There's a couple of problems with testing. And I'm going to walk through some scenarios, and just if it's you, just say me. First of all, there is resistance to testing. Some doctors are aware of medical medium and are irritated by it because of the messenger. So of course, you know, they may not believe it or whatever that is. It's a hype. They get irritated, and it's like 95% of us have had the virus. What's the point of me testing you? It's going to come positive, and it's going to be a waste of your my time and your money. Okay, again, if it's your story, say me, so we can track how many have gone through that, you know, through that drill. And it's also humiliating. I remember, especially in the past few years, people will tell me, I've been looking for a doctor for 2 to 3 years who would agree to test me for EBV. Completely relying on a doctor's opinion, and you already know it's outdated, right? So that was so frustrated to the point where on our EBV website, we now have a button and we have a relationship with a direct-to-consumer lab. And no matter where you are in the States, you can click, pay out of pocket, obviously, no doctors. You go to a local lab, you get a report in email within 24 hours, outstanding service, and you know exactly where you are, and you can do it anytime you need to. You have complete independence and empowerment. That's what I want, because that rubs me wrong. So let's talk about actually finding a doctor who will test. Now, the common labs are 3 markers, sometimes 2. How many times have you had tested? Have you been tested when only 2 or 3 markers were tested? And how many times all 4 antibodies? Give me the number of antibodies that you've been tested, if you remember. 4, Ellen, very good. Anybody else? 4. 2, there you go. 4, mostly 4. It's changing. 2, Brad. It's changing. It's getting better. It's getting better. It used to be really bad. So something is shifting already. Yes, you need 4. Gosh, this group is really lucky. Most of you got 4. Wonderful. Okay. I'm going to show those to you, Bethany, too. 4, but only positive negatives. Okay, that's not as good, right? I had to request 4. They only wanted to do 3. That's exactly, Christy, what happens. So you have to be your best advocate and always insist. Now, who has been tested for PCR? This is DNA, looking for DNA of the virus in the blood. Yes, they're going to tell you past infection. I'm going to clarify that. PCR, anyone? Yes, Nora? Okay. So PCR is looking for DNA. I'm going to teach you today, the virus doesn't linger in your blood. A few short weeks, it orients itself. Where does it go? Why do you have Hashimoto's? Because it's in your thyroid. Why you have encephalitis? Because it's in your brain. Why do you have hepatitis? Because it's in your liver. Why do you have connective tissue disorder? Because it goes into your connective tissue. Wherever it goes, it's not going to stay in your blood. So PCR can be false negative. So I would never rely on my life knowing what's going on with me on PCR, and it can be expensive. So I scratch it out because in medical literature, they're looking at initial infection and only the first few weeks. not reactivation. It's not that reliable, okay? And then there's the lab interpretation, so let's talk about that. That can be confusing for the doctor. Again, they're just going by what the lab presents. Typically, there is, you know, there is interpretation on the report. That's what they go by. They don't think, they don't read the literature, they don't understand. So let's take a look at it. You have that in my book as well. And we also have it on the website. Just so that you know, on our EBV help website, we have a complete page with all kinds of scenarios of lab reports. We also have a pop-up 15-minute video when I walk through these things in detail, because there's different scenarios, right? Everybody's different. Sometimes there's irregularity. However, this chart will probably just, you can imprint it in your memory, you'll always understand. We have 4 markers. Number 5 is rare. If you're lucky, get it, but chances are you won't. So let's go through 1 through 4. Doctors think that VCA-IgM is the only current reinfection. You can see it's black. It's the black line. It's the biggest during the initial infection. And then over the years, you can see reactivation. It bumps up a little bit. But in my clinical experience, I've seen so many of these labs, it's not enough to bump it up. So I can tell you clinically what's clinically relevant is that VCA-IgM is expected to be negative or normal if you have chronic EBV. It's just not going to keep bumping up, only initially. So I've only seen very handful of cases with this always elevated. And number 2 and number 3, the red and the green, these are here to stay. You're going to have them for probably the rest of your life. Do not expect to have them back to 0. It's never going to happen, okay? And you can have a quality of life. You can turn down the virus. You kind of taint it. You have that memory, so they're going to be elevated. But you can see that they will bump higher if you have reactivation. So if you test once in a while, you can track the numbers. Now, I'm going to answer a expected question. What happens if I have the more than 600 scenario? Anybody has those? More than 600? No number, just more than 600. Let me see if anybody has that history in your life. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, here's what the most important thing I want to tell you about this is that just because every time you test and it's still more than 600 doesn't mean that whatever you're doing is not working or you're failing, if at the same time you're feeling better. Okay, so it's working very hard, you have a recovery process, you're healing from the virus, and these are notoriously more than 600. What you don't know is that initially they may have been 7,000, they may have been 2,000, maybe it's 625. Of course you don't know because you don't have a number, but maybe eventually they will drop below that threshold, so you're going to start seeing the number and it's going to fluctuate. So does it make sense for you guys? Now the most important one, and this is like some of you said, was it Christy, that you asked for 4, they wanted to do 3. The one that they typically miss is the number 4, early antigen. The number 4 early antigen is the single most important one that you never want to skip. Never want to skip, please. Repeat, never skip. Never skip, because you won't know your status. Because this is the little bump here in reactivation. This is the one that reactivates. And again, if you, let me see here. Sometimes, if you can see this, sometimes you feel better, sometimes you feel worse, right? And the feeling worse when you really dip is when you feel like you've been hit by a truck. Anybody knows what I'm referring to? Because that's what we talk about in our community. I've been feeling like a truck hit me over. Yes, exactly. So tired. So you can be tired and in pain here, but this is a worse tired, a big truck. Exactly. So what I'm saying is that if you want to really know where you are, you want to test that virus when you feel this way, because that's actually going to show you that early antigen. The early antigen will stabilize. Look how short it is, maybe 3 weeks or so. So I remember a story of one of my students was saying we have a classic presentation of EBV in my patient. She has Hashimoto's, he has all these symptoms, he has all this history, but her early antigen is normal. What do we do? I mean, is it EBV or not? So I asked her the question, think about that. When did she test? January. When did she feel like the truck ran her over? Guess what the answer was? Thanksgiving. For many obvious reasons, right? Food, stress, family. Okay, so Heather's a classic example of what happens, what happens when you lose a number of years of your life because of the mismanagement and misinformation, and what happens when you actually learn to, where to test, what to test, how to read your test. You are completely independent and empowered. You can do it. So she's no longer confused, misled, and alone. She has the clarity. She understands all the testing. She knows where to get their support. The feeling of being hit by the truck no longer has that. She's able to work again. The brain fog was extreme. She was very anxious. She wasn't able to fly on a plane. That was before COVID, or drive. She also had ringing in the ears constantly. And so all that is gone. She's driving, no problem. She was also feeling like a failing parent. She was just, she was saying, I'm just on the sofa watching my husband and my children, and I feel like a stranger. I can't really do anything. So that's gone. She could only handle 1-minute walks, if that, and then she would crash. Now she can walk 20 minutes, no problem, comes back home, no crashing, perfectly fine. And she hasn't reactivated because she knows how to manage her life better. So now we talked about the hype. Now we're going to talk about the doctor again. Most doctors won't be able to help you. Number one, I told you about the epidemic. Your doctor doesn't know about this epidemic. They only know that it's 95% of all of us. But it's not on their radar, okay? They can't see the umbrella over it. They just look at individual conditions. So that's you're going to go from door to door. And then we're just talking about lab interpretation. This is what it is. They don't understand this lab interpretation this way. And then another thing that you may not know is, or you probably know actually, you would be the ones to know, if you are sick and if you actually ask for some therapy for EBV, what is the answer from your doctor? What options do your doctor have? You tell me, you guys, from your experience. If your doctor actually finds out that you have EBV, what do they tell you they're going to do? Bingo. Bethany, just rest. There's none. Rest and drink water. Exactly. I'm going to tell you why it's necessary, but why it's not good enough. Rest, antiviral, nothing. Okay, Christy, so there is one medication, it's an antiviral medication. So I'm going to tell you right away, if you look at medical literature, it doesn't have high efficacy. It means it doesn't move the needle all the way. And I don't hear happy stories in our community about, I got the medication and I got over it. So unfortunately, I wish. Maybe you are one of them, but that's not common. And on top of that, your doctors really are not aware that there is recovery. It is completely possible. It's done. Now, if you look through functional medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, I know that community very well. They use botanical medicine a lot, and it's again hit and miss. Functional medicine doctors, especially MDs, they tell me, they try a combination of antiviral medication, maybe homeopathy and maybe herbal medicine, and notoriously get like partial results. Now very frustrated. And that reflects what you said. What is your response? 0 to maybe 35%. If you're lucky, you said 75%, but it was like 2 people only in the group, right? It's hard to be angry with this community. And I can tell you honestly, one more thing. When I presented a poster at the international conference for autoimmunity for Institute for Functional Medicine, we had a slot of 30 minutes. I was there for 1 hour, and The doctors were just standing around me and they wouldn't leave. They had so many questions. During that conference, there was one doctor who actually lectured about viruses, including EBV. And he didn't have a whole protocol recovery process. He had some success stories he was still trying to figure out. And you know what? He was the sweetest presentation. He got standing ovation. Standing ovation because information is needed. So in the functional medicine world, natural medicine world, doctors are looking for this information, okay? So I would say, you know, the information is coming. That's why I wrote the book as well, so we can move forward. So let me tell you a happy story. Here's an example of how, you know, you left to your own resources if the doctor says go and rest. That's exactly the story. So Nico was a young college student, early 20s. He had to drop out of college. His mono really turned chronic. He was totally bedridden. And the doctor says, you know, rest, there's nothing we can do. So his mother actually talked to me, found me, and we decided to get him into the program. And so I remember our first group call, the Q&A and coaching call. Nico was in bed, flat, horizontal, barely there with his hoodie on, and he was like looking at his laptop, barely hanging in there. And I remember he was struggling with he started with the supplements because, you know, that's the easiest picking when you're really so sick. But he was struggling even tolerating them. And then we have a very active Facebook community. There's a group, and so mostly women. And so of course women like to share, men not so much. So I never heard from him and I was so worried. And so a few months later, I get an email out of the blue asking, could you please let my college know that I was taking your program because I was sick and I had EBV. I said, Nico, where have you been? What happened to you? He said, well, I'm going back to college. Like, what? So, you know, he did build up the protocol with the supplements, and then his mother was helping him with the kitchen part, the foods. And so they worked together and he got over it. So that's the power of being intentional, having the right strategies, having the right tools, you know, knowing exactly how to hit the virus. And no, he didn't have to rest and wait. He was resting and waiting all those months. That's why the mother reached out to me. So the resting and waiting out, it's not the best option. So now I'm going to present 3 scientific slides for you. It's the same slide with slightly different information. Bear with me, because this is the most important piece that I want you to take away for the rest of your life, so you understand this virus and what it's going to continue doing for you, or in you, rather. So we talk about reactivation. So reactivation is when you really tank, right? Your baseline is not healthy. You should be here. You're still sick. You're not very good. But this is the worst, right? And we have a couple of people who actually are right here. If you are in reactivating today, if you're in the middle of reactivating, please say, yes, I am, because I have to give you a lot of credit, Bethany, a lot of credit for being present here. Even if you're horizontally in bed, thank you for actually trying to be with us today. I really appreciate it. So what happens between reactivations? You know, people talk about latency, the dormant giant, sleeping giant. The sleeping giant, the sleep is not really beauty sleep. It's doing something really nasty. So are you ready for those three slides? So bear with me, a little bit of science here. You see 2 B cells. On top, you see a B cell that is infected. Inside, you have the virus, and it's lysing. Lysing means lysis. Lysing means shedding, bursting open, and the viruses are spilling. The new young virions, they're called, okay? And they're going into the bloodstream, traveling, you know, leaving the cell and going in the bloodstream. And then looking for your tissues or your thyroid or somewhere. They're looking for a condo to implant themselves and live there, okay? So that's where you have reactivation, or that's where you have what doctors call mono, right? So far, so good? Now below is the resting B cells, it's the B cell is your immune cell, lymphocyte. So the resting B cell means it's infected, but it's not bursting, okay? So that's the latency. Now, as you notice, there's viruses inside that cell. The problem is the infected cells, the virus is so smart, it turns off all the mechanisms that the cells have to self-terminate. They can literally commit kamikaze, so they can terminate themselves when they're sick. That's the bottom line. Or they can contact their other immune cells for help to say, come and kill me because I'm infected, I'm dangerous. All this is stopped. So the B cells in perpetuation are kind of floating there with all this viral information. Now, listen to this. It looks like it's dormant, waiting to lyse, right? So lysing will be this, track hit you over. But it's not exactly what happens. I'm going to read the quote on the right. Latent mechanisms are responsible for sustained infections. EBV relies more on clonal replication of infected B cells for maintenance of infection in the host cell. Basically, it's almost like cancer cells. The B cells will continue cloning, and as they clone themselves, so is the EBV clone. So the longer you go this way over the span of your lifetime, the more of these B cells are replicating, the more lysing, the more profound lysing will be, the more of the virus will be spilling. Does it make sense? Does it change the way you look at this? So for me, it was an alarm. It's like, we don't have time. I need to get on it. I need to write this darn book. I need to get on it. I need to train clinicians. I need to create programs. I need to get people the information. So if they can't replicate, it can't continue to infect. They will continue replicating. That's the problem. You can't stop that. But the recovery process is that you stall all the processes. So if your B cells clone, we get into the B cells and we turn off the virus. So it stops processing all this. So the lysing is the worst. Now the problem is also that, as you know, in your life, up and down, you're never quite well, but you just go between those. So the process between lysing and latency can happen anytime, once a week, once a month, hopefully once every 10 years or never again. There's a name for it in medical literature, not that we care. So when we work in our institute with people with chronic EBV, my first goal is stall all the processes related to EBV activity and EBV replication. Number 2, prevent future lysing. And number 3, when that lysing starts to happen, which is when you start sliding right there, the track is coming. we trained immediately how to stall this process. So as you start developing the symptoms, and then you also learn what are common triggers, what to expect and why, then we can zap it with the right acute protocol within 1 or 3 days, so it never goes into fruition and stops shedding. And this is the healing. This is the recovery. Okay, this is what happens. This is the goal. Now, in view of what I've told you, if you hear this, just rest, sleep, and wait, nothing else you can do, and after a few weeks, you will get back to your life, right? Some people may, but in our community is those people that actually never recover back to baseline after a really bad mono, like the mono from hell, like the worst flu in your life, right? This is outdated information. And then again, you only have mono once. You had your mono, that's over. Whatever you have now, it's not EBV. You can't get mono again. Have you heard this one before? Because the fact is, mono is not the only presentation of EBV, especially in Western world. You may have mono as a little sniffle, as a little infant. In fact, people with chronic EBV often don't remember having mono. They just have an autoimmune disorder, maybe, or odd presentations that I've showed you. So of course, it's instrumental. You have to rest. But waiting out, not so much. Now you understand why. In fact, in medical literature, we have chronic mononucleosis, the chronic mononucleosis syndrome. Do you think it sounds a little bit like another condition when you're always fatigued? You have this chronic mono. Yes, exactly, chronic fatigue syndrome. And there's a lot of overlap in literature between those two. Chronic fatigue syndrome, in fact, is a classic presentation of EBV, so it needs to be excluded immediately. Hepatitis at the age of 5. Your body doesn't make hepatitis at the age of 5. Exactly. This is Pat. Hepatitis, autoimmune hepatitis in particular, that's aggressive acute EBV. So to kind of wrap it up with a bow, is recovery and reversal of EBV is absolutely possible. I've seen it, and I remember I was just ready to get the book online on Amazon, and the book was ready, because that's what I've been doing all these years. And then I stumbled upon Dr. Flavin's amazing study, amazing practical, right there in your face, 2006. None of your doctors know this study unless they read the book. I was able to incorporate in it. It's treatable and reversible. That's what it is. I tracked Dr. Flavin in Germany. She's amazing. She's amazing. So where is Nico now? So remember, I asked Nico, my gosh, I was so worried about you. I've never heard. I never heard back from you what was going on. He says, I am so sorry. I've been so busy just catching up on life after being so sick so long. And said, I feel better than I did before I was sick. I can't thank you enough for all the help. I haven't felt this good for a long time. This is what happens when you actually get the right information, right support. And the third thing I promised you, we're going to discuss a little bit of, why are you failing possibly with supplements? So let me just ask a question, because sometimes, and especially if you're familiar with the book, you might be actually getting much better. What is the percentage of improvement from supplements in your case right now? And Darlene, I'm going to talk about the recovery. Don't worry, I'm here about solutions. You get worse from supplements. There's always reasons. 25, 75, 80. Perfect, Barbara. 0, 30, 40. So Barbara is doing something wrong. If it's the Barbara I know, then we know why she's doing well. Not try supplement. That's good. You haven't wasted your time and money yet. You have to be so strategic with supplements, just like with everything else with this virus, because it's so smart. Let me tell you how supplements play a huge role if you actually nail them. And this is a common story. Kate was amazing. She's an amazing woman. And I see this trajectory so often, so I want to tell you the story. Middle-aged mom, high achiever, professional, wonderful, funny, spunky lady. And we worked together years before for her IBS, and she was doing great. She had great diet, lots of plants, whole foods diet, great supplements, just healthy, maintaining her conditions. But out of the blue, she emailed me and she felt awful. Each day was a struggle, exhausted, depressed, completely unmotivated, completely demoralized. I didn't want to work or be social with friends or family. I only wanted to curl up in bed and sleep. Terrible. This was like completely not like her. Anyone can relate to this. That's classic EBV, right? I honestly thought my body at 47 had turned in its pink slip and was ready to shut down. How scary it is to think that you're dying before you even hit 50. Absolutely terrifying. She didn't tell me that at the time. She wrote it later. Once she healed, she recovered. Now the thing is, she got lucky. She got tested immediately, both for Hashimoto's and EBV, and both were positive. So I immediately sent her, I was working on the book. I sent her the manuscript. I told her, read the story of your life through the eyes of this virus. Let's see what connections you can make, because her symptoms are so terrible. And the first thing that immediately we hit running with was supplements. Like, let's just hit it. And it was like a light bulb. She says, oh my gosh, I realized I was one of those people with the idiopathic juvenile arthritis when I was a teenager, and nobody knew why. And then she was tracking down, all the incidences of reactivation, like before exams in college. She really tanked like the worst flu in her life, and then she would be tanking repeatedly. She never told me that before because that wasn't an issue. And so, she didn't wait 7 years like Heather. She was immediately on the ball. And she didn't have to be in bed for a number of months like Nico, when his mother had to call me sick. Is there something we can do because this is not getting better? She was right on the ball. A couple of quick months. And she still sends me Christmas cards and emails. I do. So let's talk about the supplements. I want you to spend every penny wisely. People take wrong dosages, wrong forms, wrong times, wrong combinations. Sometimes you have to take them with food or not. As I said to you before, I have a problem with botanical medicine. Botanical medicine is great as an adjunct, but you can't really rely on it completely to heal from this virus. Let me tell you why. First of all, I have a degree in nutrition, clinical nutrition. So my hammer and my nail is nutrients. I see nutrients everywhere. And what medical community doesn't remember or appreciate is your immune cells require nutrients. They require building blocks. And so if we don't improve the diet, you're not going to build your immune system. Your immune system is built on your fiber. That's your colon. It's a long story, it's fun. Not for today, it's in my book, it's in our recovery program, so you can learn all that. But the bottom line is, if you have one crappy meal in a fast food joint, you can increase NF-kappa B for 2 hours by 150%. NF-kappa B is an inflammatory marker. And the more NF-kappa B you have, the more EBV can hijack it to replicate. NF-kappa B is your virus's favorite place to use to claw to replicate. And so that's one whammy. We can't afford to have crappy diet. But number two, an average American, at least in the States, we are deficient, and sometimes severely deficient, in very basic nutrients. That's research, and I documented in my book if you're curious. And if you look at medical research, if your nutritional status drops, your virus becomes more virulent, more aggressive. So that's why, for me, the best strategy for a very strong and very fast application of supplements is if we base the supplements on, number one, do they have nutritional value? So can they actually jump right into the cellular structure and support our cells, including immune cells, immune function, right? Because if you have a good immune system, so much easier not to have to deal with the virus, right? And number two, are any of these nutrients actually also delivering an anti-EBV activity? So my choices are always from medical literature. I gave you an example of selenium rather than an herb, because herb may not have the nutrient, it may not multitask, but selenium certainly multitasks. Is anybody taking selenium? Brazil nuts are not reliable. If I had a health problem, I would want standard dose. I would want to know how much I'm getting. I have some yes and no. Mostly you are familiar with selenium. Bethany, no. Taking in the past years. Even I take some selenium for many, many reasons. Your thyroid, your detox, your liver, your glutathione, tons of stuff. Such a multitasker. But selenium alone stalls the replication. It stops EBV from replicating. So you see that's just one. But also you need it at a high dose. You need to be strategic. And then you need to line up all the other heavy hitters. And like you have to just carve into this virus from different angles at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense. So what happened to Kay? My energy came back, my depression lifted. I got EBV under control. I also put the Hashimoto's into remission, of course, because in her case, her Hashimoto was actually caused by EBV, so that's what we focused on. Doesn't matter how many medications you take, If that's what's driving it, you're not going to hit it. I didn't know such a miracle was even possible. I felt free. And should I reactivate, I have a full and effective toolkit to allow my body to heal itself. What an empowering gift. She also told me one thing, you know, I thought I was crazy and I thought I was dying. And through this whole process, I realized I was just sick. She says it was so empowering. It was so freeing. So she's doing great. Okay. So here's, again, my audacious, stubborn vision for you of healing and recovery, of having your life back, of going for that job, of going for that jog, walk with your dog, socializing with your friend and not tanking. All that is possible. So hopefully I have your permission to talk about what actually do we do? How do we do that in our clinic, in our institute? Yes, please, yes, please. Of course, because actually my job is to actually show you how to get out of this hunk, not just to provide information. We call it EBV Recovery Program. Welcome. So my promise for this process is, and we've gone through this process so many times with my clients, with our students, repeatedly. If you follow the process, focus on it, even if you're sick, start and continue on the process for 3 months. There's nowhere for the virus to go. If you have EBV, we're going to stop it. You're going to start recovery. Sometimes full recovery in 3 months, sometimes half the way. Okay, this is how it works. This is how it worked for others. So over the years, what I figured out is, you know, 5 simple steps, and then each step, it's really strategic. So there's more on the website I'm going to show you so you can read about that. But the bottom line is, if I'm going for food, I'm going for the right foods. If I'm going for supplements, you already know, we're not beating around the bushes. We hit the virus. Stress, sleep, toxicity. There's special toxins, environmental toxins like Wi-Fi technology or mold that really, really, really makes this virus worse and more resistant. And so there are complications that I see notoriously. And so the grand plan, in order to outsmart the virus, we first build the building blocks through these 5 steps, but then we also have a backup plan in case you have those complications. So I always want to have people think about it in terms of building a house. I don't know why in the States you don't build houses with brick. Brick is healthy, harder to get mold, and also it's solid. It really is solid. And in my work with EBV, my goal is to make your body and yourself invincible. Invincible is my favorite word, because as we're starting to set the stage and build those building blocks, you go through all the foods, you customize it. Here's where I need to be. You go through supplements, customize it. Here's where I'm comfortable. Here's where I'm going to hit it. And suddenly you turn down the volume of the virus until it doesn't have anywhere to go. That's the real healing, because it's empowering and freeing. On top of that, it's fun. The video recordings with the students from before are fun. The recipes are delicious. We have a set of about 65, my favorites, but then we have almost 1,000 other ones in a database we created just in case you are bored. We go over deeper healing processes, not just physical. That's why I'm talking about not just the recovery, but healing. You're going to smile, you're going to cry, you're going to laugh, you're going to heal. We have 10 modules, and we used to run 1 module a week. Right now we don't. You can set your pace, everything is open. This is just setting you for success. We have checklists. We kind of explain to you where to focus. We have 2 modules with resources for food, kitchen. We really hit the virus. This is a snapshot of 1 module, you know, resources. We have a zip file when you can download everything in 1 click. So I help you strategize each module, where to look, where to go. We spend a lot of time on the brain issues and the tanking issues, the energy brain fog issues. We add adjuncts, you know, like here we go, herbal teas, spices, and spices and kitchen herbs. In addition, there are delicious like anish or different things that are delicious, but also immobilize virus more and deeper. We have a beautiful module 4, which is supplements. And the thing is, you can start with that immediately, no matter where you are, and within 2 or 3 weeks, you should start seeing really a needle move and turn around in how you feel. It's all customizable. Stress is number one trigger. Even in space, astronauts are said to have a higher risk because of different stressors. So we have to tackle that appropriately. Sleep, if you don't sleep, you won't recover. It's not going to happen. There's notoriously some problems with sleep, certain symptoms at night. So we address that and we go through different scenarios. So you can also customize which case is me, how do I work through that, and we cover that part. I told you about environmental toxins. How do we deal internally and in our environment? And I also told you I love the concept of healing for you, deeper healing. When I told you at the beginning that my audacious vision for you is to go for that dream job, for example, I was actually intentional, because when you start healing deeper, and this is the beautiful module for you, you can actually start dreaming, who do you want to be? What is your purpose on this planet? If I'm well, what do I want to do? Do I want to have the same job I had before I got sick? Or do I have a dream of something else, or being a healer? A lot of people in our community are actually healers. And the concept of wounded healer, sometimes you have to go through the wounds in order to understand that you are a healer, you have that gift, and you can give it, but you have to be well. So we have that incorporated. It's very important to me that you have that chance. And then there's wrapping up in the last module where, you know, I teach you about this reactivation and lysing, how to prevent it, how to look for reactivating factor. You're going to learn all that. You're going to know so much about your body and your processes and where your EBV is. You'll be part of our EBV Hero community. In our private group, this is for you to stay. In a lot of programs, people finish the program and the group is closed or you're kicked out. This is your community and your tribe. The people post their challenges, their celebrations, we share, we celebrate for each other. A common story, Julie here, she was just starting to hike a little. It was still hard. She said, you know, in this story, she's like, I'm not doing very well, I overdid it. But now, you know, it was a quick walk for her. But I've talked to her recently. She says, now I can hike 2.5 hours, no problem, no brain fog, no crashing. We do have monthly live calls. The first Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. PT Pacific, so we 2 p.m. Eastern. We used to do them every week. We have tons of recording for you. We've run, I think, 5 groups. So in each case, if you're really, really struggling and you're really, really sick, like you have reactivation right now, what I would recommend is just turn on your laptop or computer, lie down and watch or listen. We have audio version, we have video versions, and then I also used to type my notes and put in PDF for people with resources based on our conversation. So we have tons of these in your database, so you can pick and choose for for any module. At the end of each Q&A, we had EBV Hero Spotlight. So I would pull one student, and for 20 minutes, we would strategize one-on-one. Everybody would be contributing and listening. And this was the best part of the program for everyone, because we learned so much from the individual stories and where people had hiccups and when they were struggling and where they need to clarify things and re-strategize. So basically 10 modules of transformational groundwork, building those bricks so you're invincible. You can do it at your pace, everything is open. So I really recommend going from 1 to 10, but everything is open, so you can jump where you think, like if you can't sleep, go into the sleep module right away. Of course you need to sleep, right? We talked about membership in Facebook group, the monthly Q&A. These are live. I'm on them with you. You can ask any questions, we talk. All these hours of recordings in previous Q&As with videos and audios, the spotlights, the community, your tribe, you're not alone. We have an expansive library and bonuses I'm going to show you. You have a full 1-year access. Why do I limit it to 1 year? Because what matters to me is not that you pay for the program and you're in. What matters for me is that you take action, you do something. It's your life. I want your dream life. I want you to get better. That's why I created this program. I want you to get out of this hunk. So 1 year, if life happens and you can't do it, if you want to return after a year, our alumni price is just $197. You can always jump in. Let me tell you a story of one of our graduates. Sue was a nurse. When she reached out to us, she had been hospitalized. She had viral encephalitis. When she was in hospital, she was actually reading the book. And that was the only hope she had. The doctors wanted to wait it out and see, wait and see. When she waited to see in hospital, she lost her hearing in one ear completely. And so she was so distraught. She says, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm just going to apply this book. And so she found me online and she realized we were running a group. And this was actually the very first group we ran, our beta group. And so she jumped and she actually did everything. She did everything. And she cleaned her environment. I mean, she was in so much trouble. We were able to stop the deterioration of the hearing loss in the other ear. It was, we dropped it from severe to moderate. She was finally able to move her neck. She had excruciating pain, all this involvement here, the lymph, couldn't move her neck. That's gone. Some of the magic that happened in her life is she started to garden and do yoga. I remember one time she celebrated in Facebook. Imagine, I was able to go first time in 6 months into a shopping mall, go into a store, even try some clothes on, go back home, and I wasn't exhausted next day. It was such a big victory for her. And some of you probably can relate when you are really so sick. A bonus, she used to hate cooking. Now she loves it. I'll tell you a secret. I love cooking. I'm a nutritionist. And I make sure that there's excitement and the yum factor, that they're delicious, that I get you like really excited about it. You'll see some pictures in the PDF or in the video from my kitchen with foods and stuff like that. It's important. The food is foundation for us. Now, she also learned how to prevent reactivation, of course. And now another comment, you know, remember she had encephalitis, so the virus was in her brain. And so that all brain function was impaired. And one day she posted in our Facebook group, you know, wow, this is what it feels to have a happy brain. I want my happy brain to continue to be like that. I remember that, I'll never forget that. There's Sue. I truly believe this program gave me back my life. This awesome course is also giving me the skills to prevent EBV from reactivating. And if it does, I know exactly what to do. It's a lifesaver and worth every penny. For me, the most important thing is the empowerment, the freedom, the knowledge, the tools, the skills. It's not that hard. It's just, you know, it's just different. Once you know it, you're invincible, just like her. You know, you can maneuver it in the future. So one of the objections will be, what if it doesn't work for me? You know, how many doctors have you seen? And how much money have you spent? And what is the percentage of your recovery, right? You told me it's not too good. So I made you the promise that if you follow the process, you'll get better. So if you do the modules first and you find that you're stumbling, there is a way to connect with me through monthly calls, right? Group calls. But there's also a way for students to connect with me one-on-one if needed, just for our students. So there's always a way for us to sit down together and re-strategize. Otherwise, the virus is predictable. So let's say you're not getting better, hitting the wall. You have your building blocks and there's something in it. Well, I know the typical complications. I've seen them. I've worked through these with a lot of people. And so I created bonuses. And you know, if you know you already know or suspect that you have a problem, you might jump into a bonus and read and see what it is. There are certain things that will actually blur or decrease your ability to recover, okay, from the virus, plain and simple. And one of them is heavy metals, and especially heavy metals combo with Wi-Fi technology. Not a good combination, so you have a big bonus in that. The worst is toxic mold. Nobody likes this topic. We want to be in denial. We don't want to talk about it. It's hard. I give you all the solutions and gentle therapies and resources. Then again, if you have a big mold problem, you have to turn down your Wi-Fi technology. They go hand in hand and make it worse. So it's like, ooh. There are co-infections like H. pylori, there's SIBO, there's all kinds of co-infections I discussed in the module because I'm a gut nutritionist, that's my background. And then there's a module on Wi-Fi technology. Obviously, it's a problem in our community. This is one of the things that actually sued it. She cleaned it up, and it made a remarkable improvement for her. We have to do that. And then labs. You know the basics about EBV labs, but some of the complications when people don't get better is pernicious anemia, problems with iron that are not diagnosed properly, or Hashimoto's that is not diagnosed properly. No, the labs are important. Low stomach acid that is not diagnosed properly. I have all the resources there for you so you know actually what to test. And like I said, we have a whole library. We have quite a lot of short, effective, like focused videos in shopping videos in a health food store. We have cooking projects, like a weekend project for cooking, including corresponding recipes in the video demos. And we keep building more different EBV support, like antibiotic support, dental support, home remedies. Whatever our students ask us, we add to the library. And as I said, we have about 1,000 recipes. One more thing that we created, we really care about the community. We want the community to grow and support one another. So if you graduate from our program, you can always return free. We have a free body pass if you invite somebody. So it's like big sister or big brother concept when you can do it together. On that website for the program, you're going to see we have the community board with different stories of our students during the process of healing. So you can read these stories. This is from an old version. It's not blue anymore, but it's there. I want you to read these stories because this could be your story. This is what happens. Just like I was talking about Julie, her trajectory of not being able to walk, taking short walks, and now taking 2.5 hours hiking in mountains. Real transformations. And remember, I told you you'll be irritated throughout the webinar because it's hard to comprehend that there are solutions you can recover because your trajectory is not matching that, right? And you are so ingrained in EBV. That's why I want you to read these stories. They're real students. I wanted to say that it was the best spent money in the past 5 years. The amount of information, support, and understanding is nowhere near. Tons of investment, numerous doctors, healers, and practitioners that claim to help me, but instead left me with more confusion and suffering. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is what we do. This makes my day. So if you've been overwhelmed and alone, no more. If you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, if you're ready to just turn off that virus, this is where it ends. This is where we start. This is where you make a decision. This is where you jump. Literally, you're standing on the cliff, you jump in deep water. You just have to take a leap of faith and join our community. My biggest concern is that you won't. That's my biggest concern. This is how I want you to feel. The online program has a lot of support, a lot of support. The only way you don't get better is if you don't follow and if you don't apply. We are there, I am there. And this is the last story. We're coming to the end of the presentation. I'm going to take questions just in a moment. Rachel was a young professional, okay? And she struggled with EBV since pre-teenage years, a medical doctor, naturopathic doctor, functional doctors, all of it. Her family would take her everywhere. She had to move back with her parents. She was a young professional. She couldn't work anymore. So it was disheartening, and it was really demoralizing and really depressing. And so she followed the process, just followed the process. Dr. Kasha has literally changed my life. She has given me the tools to win the battle against EBV every single time. I feel empowered and hopeful for the first time in my life. I remember, I'll never forget, she posted a picture for us in our group, standing in front of a house with the big signs like, this house is sold. She was moving out of her parents' house. She just bought a house. And she says, I'm just a little nervous because I'm stressed out, but I know my protocol. I'm jumping right into the acute protocol so I don't reactivate. Okay, my dear, I thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being here. And I appreciate that pretty much everyone is still here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share who I am and what I do. What drives me is just people like you struggling. I really want you to see that it is possible. I really want you to see that you can have your life back and you can have a dream life. I do know you don't want to settle. I know you tried all kinds of things. I know you want transformation, not more information to enlighten you. I provided you information. You don't need more. But the bottom line is, what do you want from your life? Like, what do you want really? In 5 years, in 1 year, what do you want? How do you want to live? And what's going to happen if you don't do anything? Or if you continue doing what you're doing? Remember, I told you we have to do things differently. So if you're willing to do things differently, step in. I'm going to help you. I'm going to be able to help you. But seriously, what's going to happen in a year if we don't? Are you going to get Hashimoto's, lupus? Are you going to get more depressed? Are you going to lose your job? Are you going to lose your marriage? I see that. I see that. Are you going to get on disability? Neuropathy, vertigo. What's next? You know, encephalitis. Where is it going to go next? Liver, spleen. So just if you follow the process for 3 months, and then after 3 months, let's check and see how far you go. What else needs to be done? That's as simple as that. So you're going to be thinking, is it worth my while? Is it worth my money? And is there a better program like that? There's no programs like that. There's nothing. There's no comprehensive program that has all of that research back up, everything evidence-based. With my clinical experience in nutrition, it's like perfect match. Is it worth your money? Let me assure you, it's worth every penny. My students say it's worth $3,000. My individual students and clients, in order to work with me, time, is it the right time? I really am afraid that if you don't step in, you're going to continue deteriorating. I was not able to help Marlena. I didn't know. I only learned about this virus after we lost her. I was trying to help her for years. I couldn't figure it out. And my heart is still, hurting, but I can help you. So I want you to make that decision. Take a leap of faith so you can change your life. Stick with us for 3 months. Let's just do it. Press this button, go to the website, and invest in yourself, and just don't look back. Because the transformation only happens when you project and dream into future. You can't look back and compare what happened to you with EBV. That's a different trajectory and different experience. We do it differently moving forward. I need you to trust me on this. I so want you to have your dream life. Thank you so much. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine I can heal, I can move forward, I can have a life, I can do what I love again. I don't have to feel stripped. I don't have to feel like I'm owned by the virus. I can be empowered and free. Thank you again, you guys. just sit with it and dream what it would be to not be disabled by this darn virus. And it's all within our reach, and I would be excited and delighted to see you on the other side, in our Facebook group, on the live calls, and hearing your stories and helping you tweak things so you can live your life. Okay, thank you so much. Good luck to you guys. I really appreciate you, and I want you to have a life back.